My wife is destroying my relationship with my son. Since my son was a small child, my wife's parenting philosophy has been that mothers should only provide comfort while fathers are fully responsible for discipline. This has meant that anytime my son did something wrong, I would always be left to explain why it was wrong and implement a punishment. After I would ground him or reprimand him, my wife would always rush over to him and tell him how much she loves him, etc. This has been a source of tension between us for a long time, and I've tried to sometimes swap roles and be the parent who provides comfort. In these instances, usually it was my wife that would discover he did something wrong and would ask me to reprimand him. I would tell her to, but she simply would not, and eventually I would relent. This all came to a head a few days ago. My wife, 46 female, and I, 49 male, had to leave town for 2 days to visit her aunt, 78 female, who has been ill. We left my son, a Ford Mustang, at home. My son, 17 male, has driven the car but only under supervision and isn't allowed to drive it if I'm not around. After we came back and arrived home, I went into the bathroom and my son told my wife that he had taken the car out with his friends and caused some damage while we were out of town. When I came out, my wife told me what had happened, and when I asked my son about it, he apologized and then added that the damage was very light. I felt very betrayed and went to check the car. It had a bent wheel and damage to the bumper and headlight, much more severe than I expected. I went back inside the house and yelled at my son, expressing how he lied about the damage and called him an idiot as the damage clearly indicated he had been driving recklessly, endangering himself and others. In anger, I said, 1. That my son was the least intelligent member of his friend group and that they took advantage of that. 2. That he was basically a toddler and I would start having to hide items from him so he doesn't break them. 3. He would be paying for the damages. My son apologized again and didn't say much the rest of the day. She suggested I talk to him more gently before bed so that he doesn't resent me. I replied that I've already said everything I wanted to say and that if she wants to talk to him, she can. She then expressed that my reaction has been disproportionate and how items can be fixed, and lastly how boys will be boys. Exhausted from the day, I went to bed without a real response to this. The next day after my son came from school and I sat him down for a talk, I told him that I did not think he was an idiot, but reiterated that his actions that day were dumb. I then asked him to tell me what exactly happened, and I would remain silent the entire time he narrates. Later, my wife told me that she thinks it's too harsh for our son to pay for the car's repairs. She said it was my decision to buy an expensive car that would require expensive repairs, and again, how boys will be boys. She then mentioned that while she does acknowledge what our son did was dumb, but said that it is perfectly normal for a kid his age to want to impress his friends. I have no patience for the boys will be boys mentality that she has repeatedly brought up, and told her that it was not a valid excuse for anything, and it is irresponsible for her to want our son, who is soon going to be going to university in another city, to have this way of thinking. To me, it is dangerous. She told me that I'm overreacting and have blown this whole thing out of proportion. She also mentioned that we can't micromanage him, and again that boys do stuff that we can't keep track of every little thing he does. I told her even if we can't track every little thing he does, he'll be held accountable either by us or by the law. She became quite upset now, saying that I'm being too controlling and that I'm using fear tactics. She also said clearly I was unable to accept my son living a life he could enjoy and how I value the opinion of strangers more than hers and our son's ability to enjoy life. I told her that she's delusional and her way of thinking will get our son in trouble. We have not spoken since then. Am I wrong for not adopting my dying best friend's dog and buying a puppy from a breeder instead? My best friend is dying of cancer. He could pass away any moment. Today I was visiting and showed him a picture of the German Shepherd puppy I just put a security deposit on. It will be ready to take home in 4 weeks. I've always wanted a German Shepherd puppy, so I was excited to show him the pictures, and I thought maybe the pictures would bring him at least a moment of joy, even if the moment was fleeting. But instead of sharing my excitement, things became awkward. After a few minutes of awkwardness, I asked him what was wrong. I was blindsided by his response. He said that his cousin, who was supposed to take his 2-year-old pug named Horace, could no longer take him, and I could save a lot of money by taking his dog. I looked over at Horace and he looked back at me. Well, he tried to look at me, but he's got one wandering eye that pretty much is always looking towards the ceiling. I could feel his glare with his good eye though. Horace is not a good dog. This is not me being an asshole. This is simply me knowing Horace. He's a little shit, and on top of that, he shits in the house and he tears stuff up. He's always yapping. He's always wanting something. He doesn't even know what he wants. He literally just wants to want something non-stop. He was never properly trained. Overall, I'm not a big fan of the pug dog breed. Their faces look like it's been hit with a shovel. They are always gasping for air with their eyes bulged out as if they are stranded without a space helmet in the Martian atmosphere. I told my friend, no thank you, but I will try to help him find a good home. Really? He says, are you kidding me? You've known Horace since he was a puppy. I know. That's why I don't want him. He's just not a good dog. Wow, you're such an asshole, my friend says.
I've been keeping a secret from my friend about her husband. Story time. So I was out the other day and I ended up meeting my friend's husband, who we'll call Steve. He told me not to tell anyone this story, that it is a massive secret. Steve has 3 kids and is literally always exhausted. So one day on his way into work, a woman that he always sees on the train struck up a conversation with him. She said she just knew him as the tired guy because he always looked exhausted, which I feel like is low-key kind of rude. So he began to explain why he was always so tired and always asleep on the train. She explained that she was a hotel manager and she could get him a room for free. So immediately, Steve takes her up on this offer, which, if you ask me, that's a little bit fishy. That just sounds like an affair, right? But no, Steve actually has an ongoing deal with this woman. He said that he just gets a call every now and again when there's a room free and she hooks him up. He tells his wife that he's visiting family, but actually all he goes and does is sleeps in this hotel room. He's away from his wife and kids and he is peaceful. So I was like, babe, you can't be telling me this and not your wife. I said, keeping this a secret from her, if she finds out anything, she's just gonna assume the worst. And when he told her the truth, she replied, I believe you, you'd never cheat on me. And he was like, oh, like, why do you know that? And she said, because Steve, you have no game.
Am I wrong for not giving my girlfriend 25 female my dinner after I already bought her dinner? My girlfriend and I live in New York City, and there's a popular app where you buy leftover restaurant food. Basically, restaurants advertise surprise bags at a reduced price in order to reduce food waste. So yes, the customer doesn't know what they're getting until they pick it up, but the cost is 3 times lower. These are hit or miss, and sometimes you get exactly what you want for a really great reduced price, but sometimes you get something you otherwise wouldn't have picked. So yesterday, I ordered a big surprise bag from a barbecue place I was picking up on the way home. I texted my girlfriend asking if she wanted one, but she said no, she wasn't in the mood for barbecue. However, there was an Indian restaurant right next door that had surprise bags available on the app, so she ordered one of them. The barbecue was $12 and the Indian food was $10. When I got home to unpack the meals to see what I got, I was psyched about my bag. But I can't say the same about my girlfriend. Am I wrong for not giving my girlfriend 25 female my dinner after I already bought hers? I was psyched about my bag, and since I paid $12, I knew the value had to be at least $36, but honestly, the platter looked a lot more expensive. There were burnt ends, ribs, pulled pork, baked beans, potato salad, bread, onions, and pickles. Delicious. But my girlfriend was not so lucky. Her bag only had 6 different types of soup, half of which were cauliflower. Very disappointed, my girlfriend asked me if I'd share my food, and I told her no. I told her I'm hungry and that I offered to get her some, but she told me no, so I'm gonna devour it. She got mad at me and called me a jerk, and I said if she didn't want soup, she should have ordered something specifically. I told her to order something off a food delivery app, but she said she didn't want to spend the money, and for some context, I do make a lot more than she does. And I even offered to walk to the bodega on our street and buy her something, but she told me she just wants this hot meal. Am I wrong for telling my sister-in-law that she didn't actually run a marathon? So I've been a runner for as long as I can remember, and I absolutely love it. I want running to continue growing as a competitive activity and also a just for fun hobby. I also encourage newcomers to running, but recently I encountered a situation where I felt gatekeeping was necessary. Basically, my sister-in-law got into running last year and she absolutely fell in love with it. And I decided I could connect with her on this topic. I wanted to hear about her runs, her progress, and maybe offer guidance if she wanted it. So at a family gathering, I asked her about her runs, and after a bit of conversation, she mentioned she ran a marathon. I was quite surprised she ran a marathon after only getting into running a year ago. That is amazing, and what incredible dedication and drive, I thought to myself. I was about to praise her for this incredible accomplishment, but then she started to explain this marathon in detail. And basically, it was a virtual marathon. Am I wrong for telling my sister-in-law that she didn't actually run a marathon? It was a virtual marathon that she started late last year and apparently completed this year. Basically, it was an app-based event where you tally up your running distances until you reach 26.2 miles. I chuckled slightly and told her that's great she totaled that many miles in that time frame, but it doesn't count as a marathon. I explained that marathons have time limits for completion, which is usually 6 to 8 hours, and if they didn't, I could claim multiple ultramarathons. It's disingenuous and, in my opinion, undermines those who have actually ran a marathon. She obviously didn't take this well and called me an asshole, a bully, and an elitist, and a few other things. I did apologize for upsetting her, but I stand by what I said. She didn't run a marathon. I didn't continue pressing the subject, but she wouldn't speak to me for the rest of the gathering, and my wife does agree with me. But their mother said I should have just let her believe it. Am I wrong?
Am I in the wrong for cancelling a whole vacation when I found out my stepsister hid my passport so I'd have to stay home? I have one biological sister and two stepsisters. Both my stepsisters are single mums and they both live at home with my family. So there's been issues in the past where my stepsisters have asked me to babysit for them. At first, I didn't really mind because they did pay me, but it wasn't that much, so in the end, I just ended up sacking it off. So talks of this holiday start coming up, and my two stepsisters, we'll call them Monica and Leah, suggested that I should stay home so I could watch the children, even though I wanted to go on the holiday as well. They said this would be better than hiring a babysitter because their babies are more used to me. They also highly implied that I wasn't fond of the destination that they were booking, even though I'd made it obvious multiple times that I really wanted to go. They even suggested that my stepmom should pay me double to try and get me to look after their children. There was just a lot of back and forth going on until my dad just demanded everybody to stop bringing it up. So last week we were supposed to go on this vacation. I had that panic that I hadn't packed my passport, so I just double checked, even though I knew I'd definitely put it in, and lo and behold, my passport was not in my bag. It was literally nowhere to be seen, and my dad was like, it's fine, we'll go back to the house and we'll try and look for it there. But my stepmom and stepsisters were adamant that they needed to get to the airport, otherwise we were going to miss the flight. And then they kept insisting that I should just stay at home and look after the kids and not try and find the passport. And I just outright refused. I was like, I am going on this holiday. And that was when my darling stepsister Monica admitted to helping Leah hide my passport so that I would have to stay home and babysit their children. She denied that this had happened, and that was when my dad threatened to cancel the holiday until they gave it back. Even though they did end up giving it back, my dad still cancelled the holiday as a way of punishing these 28-year-old women. My stepmom then said that I should be punished for making her daughters worry about their children when we were on vacation. Now I'm being blamed for ruining the family holiday. So what do you think?